Welcome to Clarity Currents. I'm Danielle Laura, trusted seer and spiritual advisor. Each week, I share grounded energetic transmissions and insights into the week ahead so you know how to work with the energy rather than in resistance to it and are equipped to create aligned momentum across your business, relationships, health, wealth, spirituality, and legacy. This is Clarity Currents episode for the week of April 13th through the 19th, 2026. Let's dive in. When I tune into the overall energetics of the week, I see a vision of a snake shedding its skin. At first, it's kind of slow, almost uncomfortable, but then all at once, it slips free and it leaves the old version behind completely. This is a week of identity, death, and rebirth. It feels like an emotional start at the beginning of the week, kind of like these waves are crashing over you, bringing clarity and direction that you've been heating, but is no longer really aligned. There may be moments of exhaustion, emotional release, or even grief, but it's a sacred clearing. Midweek, the energy intensifies. I kind of see this vision of a pressure cooker. Emotions are rising, things you've been suppressing bubble to the surface, but this is not random. This is literally your soul saying, we cannot carry this into the next chapter. Then by the end of the week, I see a cord being cut. It's clean, definite, and powerful. The message here is that you are not meant to be who you were anymore. This is a week to honor what's leaving, even if it feels intense, and trust that what's on the other side is freedom, clarity, and a lighter and more aligned version of you. Business for the week of April 13th. When I tune into the energetics of business this week, I see a vision of someone sitting at a desk with two versions of their work in front of them. One feels heavy, forced, even outdated, and the other feels alive, expansive, and even a little scary. But the message here is clear, which is you cannot scale the new chapter with your old energy. There may be frustration midweek around things not moving as quickly as you want or even feeling blocked, but this is actually a redirection. You're meant to ask yourself, where am I operating from an old identity in my business? Where am I continuing out of obligation rather than alignment? And what wants to be burned down so that something more true can be built? This particular week is not here to force forward momentum. It's the week to realign your foundation so that when you do move, it's clean, powerful, and sustainable. By the end of the week, I see a decisive shift, kind of like this line in the sand being drawn, a decision, a release, or this bold recalibration that opens up an entirely new path forward. Relationships for the week of April 13th. When I tune into the energetics of relationships this week, I see emotional waves crashing against the shore. It's kind of like it's bringing up things that can no longer be ignored. So this might look like heightened emotional reactions, old wounds resurfacing, frustration or tension coming to the surface. But this is not here to break your relationships. It's here to transform your relationships. There's a deep theme around self-abandonment versus self-honoring energy that's being illuminated. So you get to ask yourself, where have you been overgiving, not speaking your truth, or staying in dynamics that no longer reflect who you are? By the end of the week, I see cords being cut. Not necessarily meaning that relationships are ending, but patterns are ending. And in some cases, yes, certain connections may fall away if they're tied to an outdated version of you. The invitation is to choose relationships that match your current frequency, not your past identity. Health for the week of April 13th. When I tune into the energetics of health this week, I feel this strong emphasis on the nervous system. The beginning of the week may feel a little more tender, emotional, or even a little more fatigued, but this is your body processing and releasing. Midweek, there may be a spike in intensity, like stress, agitation, restlessness, even anger. Your body is asking for a safe release. This is the week for movement, things like walking, workouts, shaking it out. physical release, like breath work, any sort of somatic practices, and grounding, whether it's just time in nature, whether it's just resting, whatever brings you nourishment. I keep hearing you don't suppress it. You get to move it. So it is being called to move that energy out of your body. And by the weekend, your body wants integration. So slowing down, tending to yourself, allowing your system to recalibrate will be key so that you can step into this next week feeling renewed rather than depleted. Wealth for the week of April 13th. When I tune into the energetics of wealth this week, I see a recalibration of self-worth. There is a spotlight on how you value yourself, how you receive, and what you tolerate financially. There may be moments this week where you feel challenged around money, whether that's fear, pressure, or even decisions that feel intense, but it's actually an invitation to upgrade your relationship with wealth. I see a vision of someone clearing out an old vault, removing outdated beliefs, contracts, and energetic ties to scarcity. And the message is that you cannot carry old money patterns into your new levels of abundance. And by the end of the week, there is a shift. It's kind of like this reclaiming of power and deciding what you are and are no longer available for financially. Spirituality for the week of April 13th. When I tune into the energetics of spirituality this week, I see a mirror being held up to your face, but instead of reflecting your past, it's reflecting your future self. This is a deeply spiritual week of initiation. You're being asked, will you choose the version of you that you've been becoming? Or will you retreat back into what's familiar? There's a powerful healing available, especially around identity, worthiness, and self-trust. I also see a sword of light cutting cords. This is a divine intervention supporting your release. Lean into your spiritual practices this week, especially ones that help you release, surrender, and reconnect to truth. There is profound clarity available, but it comes after the release. And legacy for the week of April 13th. When I tune into the energetics of legacy this week, I see a vision of someone standing at a train station platform, watching a train slowly begin to depart. There's a moment of hesitation, like, do I get on? Do I stay? And then suddenly there's this surge of certainty and they step onto the train just as the doors are closing. So the feeling here is this train is your next chapter and it's not waiting forever. This is a week where legacy is tied to decisive movement forward, even if you don't feel fully ready. There may be something you've been circling for a while. Could be a decision, a direction, an identity you know you're meant to step into. And this week brings the energy of it's time. And it's not because everything is perfectly aligned externally. That is rarely the case. But it's because you are now aligned internally. The message coming through is that you don't build legacy by waiting until you feel ready. You build it by choosing the path when it calls you. There's also an element of leaving something behind at this platform. Maybe it's an old role, an outdated identity, or a version of you that cannot come with you where you're going. You don't need to force clarity on every step ahead, just the decision to get on the train. Because once you do, the path unfolds with you. Ask yourself, what is the train I know I'm meant to get on right now? And where have I been hesitating that I'm no longer available for? This is a week where one decision, one embodied yes, sets your legacy into motion in a whole new way. There you have it, Hot Soul, your intuitive forecast for the week. Wishing you a week of powerful release, sacred transformation, and embodied rebirth. Until next week.